Welcome back. And, it was such an afternoon of giving, giving, giving. Now we decided we need to give you something really educational as far as your well being is concerned during this very spiritual, blessed month. And I think it's a topic we always avoid. It's first about, we talk about mental health, and then we talk about our eating habits and what we should do in Ramadan to get into a better space. But what about our sleeping habits and what affects us, and how do we better our sleep during Ramadan so that we get the best out of our spirituality? Because that also affects us if we don't get enough of that. And to divulge some of that interesting information with me on air, I'm going to be joining JD Ace. He's a sleep and fatigue consultant and the founder of Arkle's Sleep Health Consultants. A very good afternoon to you, sir, and thank you so much for joining us on the Nafisa Dango Show this afternoon.
Nafisa, to you and your listeners.
A warm welcome. We're very excited because, as I was saying when I started off, in Ramadan, what happens is because we have to get up, to eat at 4 o'clock or 4:30 in the morning, and then we have a very full day because then we've got to pray in the evenings, and by the time we get to bed, we don't really have much sleep. And I think everybody's going to be enticed into listening to this because it's affecting every single one of us. So let's firstly just quickly tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, okay. I'm a sleep health consultant at in private practice, and I mainly work with people with serious sleep illnesses like insomnia and sleep apnea and so on. So, and especially now in the month of Ramadan, it is specifically important to look after our sleep because, as you know, sleep is important to maintaining our health, but especially during Ramadan, it's important to keep up our productivity during the day because we have Ramadan, but we also have to stay productive because we have jobs and responsibilities, and it is especially challenging during Ramadan to stay productive and to stay cognitive function.
I so relate to what you're saying because I think every single one of us sitting here in the studio is like, we're pulling ourselves through it some way till we get to the time where we break our fast, and I think it's got to do with having to just change our rhythm. I think that's important. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about our rhythm. What can we do for ourselves to get a better, should we say, a beneficial sleep? Because sometimes I think people sleep through this stress and anxieties, and when they wake up they feel worse than they did before. So it's having to actually talk about that and give them the advice to be able to educate them how to get the best out of that so that they have well-being during the day.
Yes, so I just want to make one point clear. Those listeners who already suffer with sleep illnesses like insomnia and sleep apnea and so forth, these rules will not necessarily, mainly with people with insomnia, these solutions that I'm about to give you will not cure them. Okay, it will not cure insomnia. I need to put that on record. But there are specific tips that we can install regarding our sleep to stay productive or as much as productive during the day. The first step is to try to consolidate our sleep. And what we mean by that is if we can, just after iftar and the sunset, we usually go to sleep quite late. But if we can maybe go to sleep a bit earlier and get at least 4 hours of solid sleep. So we have to consolidate that sleep, and then we can wake up, pray, and then right after the morning suhoor, then we can get into, if we can get into a couple of maybe 2 hours of sleep after that, if we can. But the important thing is just to consolidate our sleep and not have sleep interruptions less than 4 hours. That is the first step.
It's important that you brought that up. After we break our fast, to take like a little, should we call it a little power nap before we go for our prayer?
We can have. That is one of the tips as well. We can have a power nap, but not longer than 20 minutes. Because then we interrupt our sleeping patterns for the night. Just a quick power nap. The listeners can set the alarm for after 20 minutes to to wake up after 20 minutes again. But a power nap will definitely help, specifically during the month of Ramadan. It is. I just want to say another thing. The tips that I'm about to give you, the consolidation of sleep and the power naps,
Yes.
it's better to do all the tips together and not choose a tip that will work best, if I can put it that way.
Okay, so
Because
basically you're saying it's a
the
consolidated thing. It's something that we have to do
consolidation of
holistically.
sleep, holistic, the sleep has to be consolidated, and over and above that, power naps will help a lot. Over and above that, we need to regulate our sleeping pattern. And what we mean by that is we have to go to bed during the month of Ramadan, go to bed at the same time every night and
Mm-hmm.
wake up at the same time every morning.
Right.
That will assist in our circadian rhythm. And
Mm-hmm.
our body clock, our internal body clock is our circadian rhythm, and that will help us. Your body will start to know when to go to sleep automatically. And that
Mm.
will help us during the daytime activities when the sun is shining. Okay, so
Yes.
that is the second tip. And then also another important tip is obviously during the Ramadan and Iftar. During Iftar, then we usually eat very greasy foods, and we eat a lot. So we need to watch what we eat,
Mm-hmm.
because we need that blood where our blood need. We want our blood to go to our brains when we sleep. We don't want that energy to be wasted on digesting of food, if you understand
Right.
what I'm saying. So,
Right.
so we need to watch what we eat, and then very importantly, also we can have this during iftar. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly. During iftar, we can have a
Yes.
cup of caffeine just to help us through the day.
Right.
To just to replenish that energy level.
I like the
Yes,
idea that you speak about us, eating correctly and healthily. And I think that's important because,
yes,
we do a lot of the fries and the braais and those kinds of
yes,
things, and everything
yes,
that you feel for during the
yes,
day goes into the system.
yes,
But I think a lot of people don't realize that we're defeating the purpose of it anyway, because the idea of
yes.
fasting is to also, just besides, of course, feeling what others are going through in a less
Mm,
privileged environment,
exactly,
is to
exactly.
also get your body, because it's a detox of the body. That is why it happens over a
Yes,
month, so that your
exactly.
cells
You're right.
regenerate and you get yourself into a
Yes,
healthier space on a holistic level. And it's such an
absolutely.
amazing thing. But we
It
ourselves
is.
don't realize that we're not creating the impact that our body requires by putting all the incorrect things into our body.
Yes, and then also the important role that sleep plays during the month of Ramadan. Um, uh, Sleep is something that is totally free for us all.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we are less fortunate or not, so that is something we can be grateful for, and really harvest that opportunity and increase the to increase our sleep health as well. It is very important, and also a given. It is free for us all.
Right.
So those are my tips. Another important daytime tip that I can also give you guys is to stay active during the day. For instance, obviously we are fasting during our tea breaks and our lunch breaks, so we can't enjoy food.
Mm-hmm.
But what we can do in the meantime is to get out of the office and get some sunlight,
Right.
and that will also help us our circadian rhythm to have a bit more energy that can last us through till after iftar, and help us to fall asleep at night. So the you can as you can see the tips and the actions that we can do is something that we can apply not only during Ramadan but also during our general lives.
Mm.
That will help us in our general health in the future.
And I agree with you because, as you were speaking about your circadian rhythm, I think it's imperative for our listeners and our viewers to understand how important our sleeping pattern is, because it affects us holistically, from people starting to get mood swings, short temperedness.
Yes,
Then there's, of course, in the work environment where you go and you can't perform equally as well as you do out of Ramadan, because
absolutely.
you've tempered now with your sleep pattern. And I think that's something we as people don't understand, that it's a routine that we have to create for ourselves, like we do with the rest of the
Yes,
things. And in
yes,
order for our body to be able to be accustomed to that, to say at 10 o'clock is my time to go to bed, and that's what I'm going to do every
yes,
single day. And we seem
yes,
to temper with that, and that's what messes up our entire, should we say,
exactly.
holistic being.
Yes, and what you say is, if we run out of time, to do things during the day, the first thing that we take time from is sleep time, and
Mm.
that's quite important. I always tell, if I advocate about sleep health, what I advocating is that saving your time to sleep in a diary is like putting money into a savings account. You
Yes.
know, it is adding to your health. It's adding to your overall health.
Mm-mm.
And we need to look at it that way. If we sleep better, we will be more productive. We will have less illnesses. We will look after our bodies as temples more efficiently
Right.
if we look after our sleep.
That's so true.
So yes,
I read something very interesting by Dr. Munir Al-Obeidi, and he says, see, sleep deprivation causes changes to the hormones that control
yes,
appetite and hunger. In
yes,
addition to hunger pangs, lack of sleep can affect your decision making when it comes to
yes,
what to eat, often leading to giving into cravings for fatty, sugary junk food and making
yes,
weight gain more likely. So a
yes.
lot of people have this under this impression that we fasting the entire day, and I'm going to
Mm,
go ahead and eat whatever I like in the evening. I'm not realizing
mm.
that it's also going to affect our sleep because now our body's whole system is in a real mess, including our sleep pattern.
Yes, absolutely. The types of food that we eat will influence our sleep patterns, but mainly what I explained earlier from a digestive point of view. We want
Mm,
that blood. Remember, when we fall asleep, when we sleep, we our body is going into a stage which we call deep sleep. A
mm,
very slow. It's a very active type of sleep, but it is we call it slow wave sleep. Our
mhm.
organs basically shut down because that is the only time that they can afford to rest.
Mm.
You see. And
And of
if
course
we spend,
rejuvenate. Let's put it that way.
yes, of course, and that is where our immune system gets stronger. That is where we rejuvenate physiologically. You know, in terms of our organs and our hearts and our important organs is rejuvenated during deep sleep. And if we eat fatty foods or very heavy
Mm,
sugary type of high carbohydrates foods, that the body will spend energy to digest that food in a time of the day where it is supposed to rest.
right.
Remember that during Ramadan, our sleeping hours, our quantity of sleep is already reduced.
That's true.
And because of reduction of sleep time, we have to do everything in our power to make the quality of that sleep as much as possible. So we have to increase our quality of sleep if we cannot increase our quantity of sleep.
Mm, that
So on that note, there are many of your listeners who have a condition called sleep apnea.
right.
And many of those of your listeners are sleeping on CPAP machines. I don't, CPAP is to help them breathe at night. They know who they are,
Yes.
and I want to put it out there that this is a very important time because the sleep time is reduced. Now is the time to sleep on the CPAP machine and to even use it more.
Mm,
To help them with the breathing during the night. It's not a time to put the CPAP machine in the cupboard and
mm.
say because it's Ramadan, I don't want to sleep on the CPAP machine. It is now specifically important to increase that quality of sleep because the quantity is reduced.
Right. Jenny, now that we're talking about that, what about people that are suffering from anxiety and stress at the moment? As we know, COVID
Yes,
19 has created a worse situation as far as that is concerned
yes,
because people are facing many
yes,
challenges. What sort of
yes.
advice would you give them? Because a lot of
It is,
people I find suffering from anxiety and sleep are also suffering
yes,
from insomnia as such.
insomnia. Yes, that's correct. I wish I could give them a solution in a few seconds. But unfortunately, insomnia
Unfortunately,
is
not.
such a debilitating condition that I cannot cure everybody now over the phone and cure them of insomnia tonight. But if I can give some advice is if you cannot sleep, if you
Mm,
struggle to sleep because of anxiety, it's a good time to get out of bed and do the worrying and anxiety in a different place in your residence or in your house. And you can spend that time praying, um, you know, putting your worries out on paper, and just don't do the worry in bed, because what will happen, we call it conditioned arousal. So your brain will make an association with your bed
Mm.
as a place of worry and stress, and not as a place of sleeping. And to break that association, we need to worry at a different place in the house, not in the bedroom.
Interesting that you brought that up, because I was reading about that just yesterday, when I knew you were going to come on air. And
Yes,
I was reading about this exact thing that you were talking about, saying that
yes,
people are not even encouraged to put a television in their
yes,
bedrooms, because your mind will then condition yourself to say that this
yes,
is the place where I'm going to watch a telly, and I'm not going to
yes,
actually get my sleep that I really need. So I think people need to
yes,
also understand that. And I like that you brought up the idea where you could go somewhere else and sit somewhere in another space, and leave that space for your time
yes,
out, where you can actually
yes,
get that proper sleep and that rejuvenation that you require.
yes. And also during Ramadan, just after iftar, when it's getting darker, we call it a buffer zone.
Yes.
Is to start to switch off the lights at the relatively, when it's dark, and after dinner, and so after we break our fast for the day, is to switch the light off and get our brains used to switching off, and
Mm.
prepare our brains to fall asleep by switching off the lights, taking a hot shower, and just taking it easy. And that is the time where we can also spend some time with the families,
Mm-hmm.
in a quiet, relaxed environment where the lights are off,
Mm-hmm.
or as dark as possible, so that we don't walk into the walls. Okay, but obviously as dark as possible, switching off all the technology, TVs and cell phones and computers and what have you. Switch it off and have that what we call a buffer zone, a buffer time, just to
Mm.
relax, spend some time with family, praying or whatever we do, and then get ready for bed at a certain time.
That has
So
really
it
been
all
some
fits
valuable
very well.
advice that you've given us,
Thank you.
because
Thank you.
I think it's shed some light on the situation, which is something we always wanted to tap into. Because on the show we tap into all the positives, and we try and get you into a better space and place, as far as
Yes,
upliftment, sustainability, but as also well-being is concerned. And as we
yes,
know, Ramadan is the month of all of that. It's reflecting,
yes,
retrospecting, but also looking after your health and changing your mindset and your well-being on a holistic level. And I'm
yes.
glad that we spoke about the importance of sleep, and people understand how important it is, a role that you play to many a people,
Mm,
to actually to
mm.
change the zones that they're in, we'll put it that way. So I want to thank you
Yes,
so much for joining us today. You've
it's
inspired
a
us in a
pleasure.
in a different direction. But what message would you
Yes.
like to leave our viewers with this afternoon?
My message is, I need about an hour for this, but we don't have the time. So my message is my message to everybody is, um, sleep is obviously very important. That's the one thing. And if you can't sleep, if you struggle to sleep, remember that sleeping is like eating.
Mm,
Okay? You will fall asleep sometime or another. We are biologically built that way. So if you struggle to sleep during the month of Ramadan, it is not the end of the world. You will fall asleep at a later stage. Okay?
right.
So it is not, it is, sleep is in us. It is part of us. We are built that way, and we will fall asleep sometime or another. If you can't sleep that specific night, it's okay for that night, and don't stress about it. That's the one message. If I can add one more message is,
Sure.
children, children, specifically school-going children, needs their sleep. And I'm probably going to step on some toes now, but children growing up needs to sleep obviously more than adults, because they are still growing, and sleep
Sure.
plays such a big role in connection with that. So I don't know if they are, how many kids are going to bed at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock that night, or at night. It is too late. They need to go to bed earlier. We will have less problems. The kids will perform better in school, and we will have less attention deficit
Now,
disorder
I'm glad
problems.
that you brought that up, and I'm hoping that we can tap into you some other time to be
Yes,
able to just discuss that
yes,
particular aspect of
yes.
helping our children out. So I want to thank you for joining us. We seem to be running out
Thank
of
you.
time. We will
Fantastic.
definitely get in touch with you with regard to that
Thank you.
aspect of it. But we really
Great.
appreciate you taking the time out to entice us, as I always say, into a better space and a better place. And we're hoping that all our viewers have some really good sleep after getting enticed by you. Thank you so much. And
Thank you for your time.
we wish you well. And we will be praying
Yes.
for you during the month of Ramadan.
Thank you very much. Thank
You
you.
take care of yourself. Thank you so
You
much.
too. Thank you. Bye
Okay, bye
bye.
bye. That was JD Ace giving us some very valuable information about our well being, not realizing how important our sleep is for us. So let's try and follow some of those tips to get a beneficial Ramadan. For myself and the team, we've actually run out of time. I want to leave you with something that was said by our beloved Prophet Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. It says, "The best richness is the richness of the soul." So there we go. Let's go ahead and take the best. Should we say, take the bull by the horns and make the best of this month? For myself and the team, same time, same place tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.